This exercise contains a long, detailed conversation between two friends, Ben and Vanessa, discussing the most effective ways to learn a new language.
I keep wondering why some people learn new languages so efficiently, while others struggle for years. I feel like there must be a pattern behind the ones who become fluent.
There actually is a pattern, and it has less to do with natural talent than people think. The biggest difference is that successful learners find ways to enjoy the process. They do not rely only on school methods. They create their own personal system that fits their interests and their lifestyle.
Enjoyment sounds too simple, but now that I think about it, it explains a lot. When I enjoyed something in English, I stayed with it much longer. When I was bored, I gave up quickly.
That is exactly how it works. Many polyglots realize that the moment they switch from boring textbooks to materials they actually enjoy, progress suddenly accelerates. Some read novels, some listen to podcasts, some watch series, and others talk to people online. The common factor is enjoyment, not a specific method.
I remember a time when my teacher forced us to read dialogues about buying train tickets. I never cared about those. I forgot the vocabulary right after the test.
That is a perfect example. Imagine instead that you read a story you genuinely like. Even if you understand only a small part at the beginning, your brain stays alert because it wants to follow the plot. When you enjoy something, the brain works harder without being asked.
So enjoyment makes the brain absorb more.
Yes, and that is why people who immerse themselves in content they love often reach fluency much faster. They are not forcing themselves to learn. They are simply living with the language.
But enjoyment is only one part. What about methods?
Successful learners also use effective memory strategies. One of the most important is spaced repetition. If you learn a new word today and never review it again, you forget it. But if you review it tomorrow, then 2 days later, then a week later, it stays in your long-term memory. This is how vocabulary actually sticks.
In school, I always memorized vocabulary lists the night before the exam. I passed the test, but I forgot everything a few days later.
That is a classic problem. The brain remembers only what it sees repeatedly over time. That is why apps like Anki and Memrise work well. They force you to review words at the right intervals. Even writing word lists in a notebook works if you set a review schedule.
So repetition across days is more important than cramming in one night.
Exactly. And the third element is building a system. Successful learners do not wait for free time to magically appear. They design learning into their schedule. They decide when and how they will practice every day, even if it is only 10 or 15 minutes.
That is something I never did. I studied only when I felt motivated or when exams were near.
And that is the problem many learners face. Without a system, motivation goes up and down. But if you create a plan, learning becomes a routine. For example, listening to a short podcast during breakfast. Reviewing vocabulary for 10 minutes in the morning. Watching a video in the target language during lunch. Small steps add up.
It is like building a habit instead of waiting for motivation.
Yes, a habit is stronger than motivation. Motivation fades quickly, but habits keep you going. If you treat learning like brushing your teeth, it becomes automatic.
What about speaking practice? Many people are afraid to speak.
Speaking is important, but there are different approaches. Some start speaking from day one. They learn a few basic phrases and use them immediately with native speakers. They do not worry about mistakes. They simply use feedback to learn. Others prefer to build confidence first, through listening and reading. Both approaches work, as long as the learner likes the method.
I think many people hesitate because they fear making mistakes.
True, but mistakes are part of the process. In fact, the more mistakes you make early on, the faster you improve. The key is to view mistakes as information, not failure.
But not everyone has access to native speakers.
That is no longer a barrier. There are websites, language exchange apps, online communities, and even the possibility of chatting with strangers. One learner even created conversations by copying messages between different people until he understood the patterns. It shows that there are many creative ways to practice.
That is clever. It proves you do not need to travel to practice.
Exactly. And if someone is introverted or shy, they can use self-talk. They can describe their day, talk through their plans, or explain what they see in a picture. Speaking to yourself is still speaking, and it builds fluency.
I never thought about self-talk as a method, but it makes sense. You can practice anytime without pressure.
Yes. Some learners practice self-talk while cooking, walking, or cleaning. It helps build automatic sentence patterns.
So far we have enjoyment, spaced repetition, and building a system. What else matters?
Patience. Many people quit because they expect fast results. But language learning takes time. You cannot become fluent in 2 months, but you can make visible progress in 2 months if you study in small, enjoyable chunks every day.
People often underestimate what daily small efforts can achieve in weeks or months.
Exactly. Progress happens gradually. At first, everything feels difficult. Then you have a small moment of understanding. Then another. And little by little, the pieces connect.
I remember the first time I understood a joke in English. It felt like everything clicked for a moment.
Moments like that motivate people even more. That is why consistency matters. Every day of practice increases the chance of experiencing another moment of understanding.
What about vocabulary? Do learners focus more on common words or on grammar rules?
Different people use different approaches. Some start by learning the 500 most frequent words because those appear in most conversations. Others start by imitating sounds to match pronunciation. Some start with grammar to build a foundation. Others ignore grammar until later. The important part is choosing what feels natural and enjoyable for you.
I like the idea of starting with common words. It gives you something useful right away.
Yes, and common words appear everywhere, so you reinforce them naturally while reading or listening.
How important is reading in the early stages?
It depends. Some learners love reading early, even if they understand little. For example, one person read a novel in translation even though they barely understood the first chapters. But because they loved the story, they kept reading, and by the end, their comprehension improved dramatically.
That is interesting. I always hesitated to read because I thought I needed to understand everything.
You do not need full comprehension. Partial comprehension is enough. The brain fills in gaps over time.
What about watching shows?
Shows are excellent because they give listening input with natural pronunciation. At first, it sounds like noise, but season after season, you begin to understand more. This gradual transition from confusion to clarity happens faster when you are emotionally attached to the show.
So liking the show increases the chances of sticking with it.
Exactly. If you enjoy the characters and the story, you keep watching even when it is hard.
Many learners still think polyglots are geniuses.
That is a common belief, but it is not true. Many polyglots struggled in school. Some even believed they had no language talent. But once they found their personal method, they improved rapidly. They discovered that what held them back was not their ability but the method they used.
That is encouraging.
Yes, anyone can get better by taking control of their learning. People who failed for 10 or even 20 years suddenly succeed once they switch to materials they enjoy and systems that work.
I want to apply these ideas myself.
Then start with choosing something in English that you genuinely like. Maybe a podcast, a YouTube channel, a series, a book, or a topic you care about. The first step is to create enjoyable daily contact with the language.
That sounds manageable.
And remember to review vocabulary regularly using spaced repetition. Even 10 minutes a day is enough.
What about grammar? How should I approach it?
Grammar is useful, but you do not have to master it in the beginning. You can learn it gradually. The more input you receive, the more grammatical patterns become familiar. You can study grammar when you actually feel the need for clarity.
I like that. Learning grammar in context feels more natural than memorizing rules.
Exactly. Context makes grammar easier to understand.
Another problem people face is forgetting what they learn.
That is why tracking progress helps. When you write down what you did each day, you can see improvement over time. Even if progress feels slow, the record shows that you are moving forward.
I never tracked anything. Maybe that is why I felt stuck.
Tracking helps you stay motivated. It also shows you what methods you used and which ones were effective. It turns learning into a conscious process instead of a random effort.
How can people maintain motivation over months?
By focusing on the process, not the outcome. If you aim only for fluency, you might get discouraged. But if you focus on enjoying the daily steps, you stay motivated. And the more you enjoy each session, the easier it becomes to continue.
I like that idea. Enjoyment creates consistency, and consistency creates fluency.
Exactly.
I want to understand more about choosing the right learning materials. Many people do not know what to pick. How should someone decide?
The best approach is to pick something you already enjoy in your native language. If you like fantasy stories, choose fantasy stories in English. If you like cooking, watch cooking videos in English. If you like technology, follow tech channels in English. This way, you combine your existing interests with language input.
That makes it easier to stay consistent, because you are naturally curious.
Exactly. Curiosity drives learning. When you want to know what happens next in a story or how something works, your brain does not notice that it is working in another language. It learns automatically in the background.
Many people ask whether they should use subtitles. What do you think?
Subtitles are helpful in the beginning. You can start with subtitles in your native language if you are completely new. Later, switch to subtitles in the target language. Eventually, try watching without subtitles. But do not rush. Use subtitles as long as they help you understand the story.
I used to feel guilty for using subtitles, like it was cheating.
Subtitles are not cheating. They are tools. Even native speakers use subtitles sometimes. The purpose is comprehension. When you understand the storyline, your brain learns more vocabulary and structure.
What about listening comprehension? It is one of the hardest skills for learners.
Listening improves with exposure. At first, everything sounds too fast. You cannot separate the words. This is normal. With enough hours of listening, the brain starts recognizing familiar patterns. The speed does not change, but your perception improves, based on the gradual listening improvement described in the file.
I noticed that when I listen to English songs. At first, I only heard the melody. After listening a lot, I suddenly understood some lines.
Exactly. The brain needs time to tune itself to the rhythm and sound of the language. And variety helps. Listen to different speakers, different accents, different contexts.
Some people get discouraged because they think they are too old to learn.
Age is not a barrier. Adults can learn languages very well. In fact, adults have advantages. They understand learning strategies, they can build systems, and they know how to stay disciplined. The idea that only children can learn languages well is a myth.
That is reassuring.
The real question is not age, but consistency. Someone who studies 10 minutes every day will learn more than someone who studies 2 hours once a month.
What about using apps for language learning?
Apps are helpful for specific tasks like vocabulary review or grammar practice, but you need real input too. Apps alone cannot provide the variety of language you get from reading or listening. Think of apps as supplements, not the main diet.
So reading, listening, speaking, and writing should all be part of the routine.
Yes, but not necessarily in equal amounts. Some people learn mainly by listening. Others learn mainly by reading. Others learn by speaking early. The key is to engage with the language in ways that you like.
Do you think it is useful to imitate native speakers?
Imitation helps with pronunciation and intonation. Some learners listen to a short clip and then repeat it, trying to match the sounds. This is similar to how children learn. It is a powerful technique.
But many learners feel embarrassed repeating things alone.
That is why private imitation sessions are good. You can do it alone in your room, in your car, or while walking. It is just you and the language.
What about grammar mistakes? Many people get stuck trying to avoid errors.
You cannot avoid errors. Even advanced learners make mistakes sometimes. Instead of trying to avoid them, learn from them. Make mistakes early and correct them gradually. If you wait until you know everything, you will never start speaking.
I used to be afraid of saying something wrong because I thought people would judge me.
Most people do not judge language learners. They appreciate the effort, and mistakes show that you are practicing.
How can learners maintain a long-term vision?
Break the goal into manageable steps. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, say, I want to understand one episode of a podcast. Then, I want to read one chapter of a book. Then, I want to hold a 5-minute conversation. Every time you complete a small step, you move closer to fluency.
That makes progress more measurable.
Exactly. And seeing progress increases motivation.
I want to know more about the kinds of creative methods polyglots use.
Some methods are surprisingly creative. One person added many random native speakers on a communication app and built conversations by copying messages between them until he understood the patterns. Another learned by cooking from recipes in the target language. Another kept colorful grammar charts. Some made handmade flashcards. The creativity is endless.
It seems like experimentation is important.
Very important. Every successful learner experiments until they find the method that fits their personality. Some try dozens of methods before settling on their favorites. The mistake is believing that one method should work for everyone.
Schools often teach only one method.
Yes, and that method does not fit everyone. Schools usually focus on grammar first, but many people learn better from input, from repetition, or from conversation. When learners leave school, they often think the problem is themselves. But the real issue is that the method did not match their learning style.
That explains why many people believe they have no language talent.
Exactly. They were taught in a way that did not work for them.
So talent is not the determining factor.
Not at all. Some people who thought they were terrible at languages became fluent once they changed their approach. Talent might exist, but it is not the main factor. The main factor is method, enjoyment, and consistency.
What about writing practice? Should learners write early?
Writing can help reinforce vocabulary and grammar. It also forces you to form sentences using what you know. But if writing is not enjoyable, you can start later. Writing is useful but not mandatory in the beginning.
How should someone choose a book to read?
Choose a book you already know in your native language. That way you already understand the plot and characters. Your brain can focus on the language instead of trying to understand everything from scratch. This is the same strategy used by someone who read a translated version of a book they loved.
That makes the learning process smoother.
Yes, predictability helps.
How do you deal with feeling overwhelmed by unknown words?
Do not try to look up every word. That slows you down. Instead, guess the meaning from the context. Only look up a word if it appears very often or if it is essential to understanding the story.
That is a good approach.
Another useful thing is to read and listen to the same material. For example, listen to the audiobook while reading the text. This reinforces the vocabulary and improves listening skills at the same time.
I see how that could help connect sounds with words.
Yes. It also helps you get used to natural speed.
You mentioned earlier that tracking progress is helpful. How can someone do that?
You can keep a simple log. Write down what you learned each day. It can be short. 10 minutes of vocabulary review. 1 episode of a podcast. 15 minutes of reading. When you read your log after a month, you realize how much you have done, even if each step felt small.
That creates visible proof of progress.
Exactly, and it helps you stay consistent.
What about choosing goals? Should they be big or small?
Both. You should have a long-term goal, like speaking fluently, but you should break it into small goals, like watching 1 video or learning 10 new words. Small goals give frequent victories.
And victories build confidence.
Yes, confidence comes from progress, not from perfection.
I think many learners quit because they feel they are not progressing fast enough.
That is true. People expect fluency quickly. But fluency requires thousands of small steps. If you enjoy the steps, you will reach the destination. If you only focus on the destination, you may give up.
How do you avoid burnout?
By keeping the process enjoyable and varied, use different activities. Read 1 day, listen another day, practice speaking another day. Variation keeps your brain active and prevents boredom.
What about immersion? Many people recommend it.
Immersion helps, but you can create immersion without traveling. You can set your phone to English. You can follow English-speaking accounts. You can listen to English music, watch English videos, or read English articles. Surround yourself with English as much as possible.
That sounds doable.
Immersion is about exposure, not location.
What about fear of forgetting vocabulary over time?
Forgetting is normal. The brain forgets so it can prioritize. That is why spaced repetition works. You review words at increasing intervals, which strengthens the memory. Without review, forgetting is guaranteed. With review, retention becomes much stronger.
I think this principle applies to other skills too.
Yes, learning anything requires repeated exposure.
How do you stay patient during long learning processes?
by appreciating the small improvements. When you notice that you understand a little more than last week, that is progress. When you can read a sentence without checking a dictionary, that is progress. When a phrase feels natural, that is progress.
But many improvements are subtle.
True. That is why consistency and tracking help you notice them.
I want to talk about the idea of learning every day. Is it really necessary?
Yes. Short, daily practice is more effective than long weekly practice. The brain retains more when learning is spread out. Even 10 minutes every day is better than 2 hours once a week.
That makes sense.
The brain prefers steady input. It builds neural connections gradually.
Many learners think they need to understand everything before moving on.
That slows progress. It is better to continue, even if you do not understand everything. Comprehension improves through exposure, not perfection.
What about speaking with mistakes?
Mistakes are valuable. They show where you need improvement, and they build confidence over time.
I feel more motivated now.
That is good. Motivation is strongest when you see a clear path. And now you have one.
I want to go deeper into the idea of creating a personal system. How does someone build a system that actually works for them?
A good system is simple, predictable, and enjoyable. It usually has 3 parts. First, daily exposure to the language through listening or reading. Second, regular vocabulary review with spaced repetition. Third, planned speaking or writing practice every week. These components create a balanced routine.
Let us look at each part separately. What does daily exposure look like?
It can be as simple as listening to a podcast during breakfast or reading a few pages of a book before bed. Exposure means the language enters your mind naturally. It does not require intense focus. It just needs to happen regularly.
That seems manageable. What about vocabulary review?
Vocabulary review should be short and frequent. 10 minutes is enough. The purpose is to reinforce what you already encountered in real content. Apps help with spacing the review sessions. This is what moves words from short-term to long-term memory.
And for speaking practice, how should learners structure it?
Speaking practice can be once or twice a week. It can be with a friend, a tutor, or a language exchange partner. The goal is to turn passive knowledge into active ability. Speaking forces your brain to retrieve words.
That retrieval part is important. Without speaking, words stay passive.
Exactly. The brain needs to use the information to strengthen the connections.
What about the fear of forgetting words, even after reviewing them?
Forgetting is normal. If you forget a word, it simply means you have not reviewed it enough, or you have not encountered it in context often enough. Review it again. Encountering it in real content also helps.
So forgetting is part of the process, not a sign of failure.
Yes. People expect perfect memory, but language learning is not like storing files on a hard drive. It is dynamic. You learn, forget, relearn, and refine.
Let's talk more about input. Some people say input is the most important part.
Input is essential because it feeds the brain with natural patterns. The more you listen and read, the more familiar structures become. Eventually, you begin to produce similar structures when speaking.
I noticed that after watching a lot of English shows, I started copying phrases without thinking.
That is exactly how input works. When you immerse yourself in a language, your brain starts detecting patterns subconsciously.
Can someone rely almost entirely on input?
Some people do. They listen and read for months before speaking. Eventually, when they speak, they have a large base of phrases and vocabulary. But even then, adding speaking practice later is helpful.
What about output-first approaches?
They can work too. Some learners prefer to start speaking immediately. They learn basic phrases and use them as building blocks. They learn from the feedback they receive. This method works well for social learners.
So both methods work depending on personality.
Yes, there is no universal rule. The key is to follow the method that keeps you motivated.
I want to understand more about self-talk. How does someone practice it?
It is simple. Describe what you see around you. Explain what you are doing. Talk through your plans for the day. You can even imagine a conversation. For example, you can pretend someone asked you about your weekend and respond out loud.
That sounds useful because it removes pressure.
Exactly. Self-talk builds fluency and confidence. It also reveals gaps in your vocabulary. If you want to describe something but cannot find the words, you know what to learn next.
Speaking of gaps, how should learners choose which vocabulary to focus on?
Focus on words that are relevant to your life. If you are a student, learn vocabulary related to school. If you travel often, learn travel vocabulary. If you enjoy cooking, learn food and kitchen vocabulary. Relevance increases retention.
Many textbooks include words that are rarely used.
Yes, that is why learners should customize their vocabulary lists.
What about grammar errors that persist for a long time?
Persistent errors usually mean you are not noticing the correct pattern in your input. To fix them, find examples of the structure in real content. Read or listen to sentences containing the structure. Practice using them. Repetition strengthens the pattern.
That seems more effective than memorizing abstract rules.
Yes, grammar needs context. Rules are helpful, but examples make them real.
How does goal setting work in language learning?
Goals should be achievable and motivating. For example, finishing one chapter of a book, listening to one podcast episode, learning 10 new words, or having a 5-minute conversation. Achievable goals give you a sense of progress.
And when you achieve a small goal, you get motivation to continue.
Exactly. Progress builds momentum.
I want to know more about the idea of passion. The subtitle file mentioned that polyglots enjoy the process so much that it feels like fun rather than work.
Yes, that is a core principle. When you are passionate about your method, the process becomes effortless. Some learners love making colorful grammar charts. Others love cooking recipes in the target language. Others enjoy collecting vocabulary statistics. The passion turns learning into a hobby.
That means passion can transform the difficulty into enjoyment.
Yes, it changes how you perceive learning.
How can someone find passion if they do not have it yet?
Explore different activities until something clicks. Try reading, watching shows, listening to podcasts, writing a journal, joining an online community, using flashcards, following influencers in the target language, or playing games. Something will eventually feel enjoyable.
Then stick to the activity you enjoy most.
Yes, that becomes the center of your system.
You mentioned earlier that some people learn a new language every 2 years. How do they maintain enthusiasm?
They treat learning as a long-term lifestyle. They enjoy the process so much that they never want to stop. When they master one language, they naturally move to another, because the excitement of exploring new sounds and structures motivates them.
That mindset seems powerful.
Yes, it shifts learning from an obligation to a discovery.
Let's talk more about patience. Many learners become frustrated during the early stages when they do not understand much.
That stage is temporary. At the beginning, your brain has no anchor in the language. Everything sounds unfamiliar. But with regular exposure, the brain begins identifying repeated words. Once you have a few anchors, comprehension grows faster. This process takes time, which is why patience is essential.
How does someone stay patient?
By celebrating small victories, for example, recognizing a word in a show, understanding a sentence in a book, remembering a new phrase during a conversation. Small victories show that the system is working.
What about people who feel overwhelmed by the amount of things to learn?
Break everything into tiny pieces. Learn 5 words instead of 20. Listen to a 5-minute audio instead of a 1-hour podcast. Read a short paragraph instead of a full chapter. Tiny steps reduce overwhelm and build consistency.
That feels much more doable.
Yes, the brain responds well to manageable tasks.
Let's talk about immersion again. How can someone create immersion at home?
Here are several ways. Change the language of your phone to English. Follow English-speaking accounts on social media. Watch videos in English daily. Read articles in English. Listen to English podcasts during your commute. Surround yourself with English wherever possible.
So immersion is more about consistent exposure than physical location.
Exactly. You can live in an English-speaking country and still not learn the language if you avoid exposure. And you can learn from home if you immerse yourself every day.
I like that. It removes the idea that travel is required.
Yes. Modern technology gives everyone access to the world.
How do learners avoid the trap of comparing themselves to others?
Comparison is unhelpful because everyone has a different background, different methods, different exposure, and different speed. Focus on your own journey. Ask yourself whether you are better than yesterday, not better than someone else.
That is a healthier mindset.
Yes. Progress is personal.
What about motivation dips? How can someone recover?
Motivation goes through cycles. During low motivation periods, reduce the intensity but maintain the habit. Do easier tasks like listening to something fun. Keep the language alive. When motivation returns, increase the effort again.
So the key is not to stop completely.
Exactly. Do something small daily to keep momentum.
I want to know more about advanced learners. How do they continue improving once they reach an intermediate level?
Intermediate learners need more input variety. They should read different genres, listen to different accents, and expose themselves to more complex topics. They should also increase speaking practice to activate the vocabulary they have acquired.
At intermediate level, progress seems slower.
Yes, but that is normal. The beginner phase has rapid improvements because everything is new. At intermediate level, you refine details, which feels slower but still moves you forward.
How can someone reach advanced fluency?
By maintaining long-term immersion, using the language in real contexts, speaking frequently, and engaging with native-level content. At this stage, learning becomes less about study and more about real-world usage.
What about accent reduction?
Accent reduction requires listening carefully and imitating sounds. Shadowing is a technique where you repeat what you hear immediately after the speaker. This helps with rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation.
Shadowing sounds challenging.
It is, but it is effective. Many learners use it to improve pronunciation.
Let us talk about discipline. How do learners build discipline?
Discipline comes from two things. First, having a clear routine. Second, having a method you enjoy. Enjoyment reduces the need for discipline because you want to continue.
That is interesting. Discipline is strongest when enjoyment is present.
Yes, enjoyment is the fuel.
People often ask how long it takes to become fluent.
There is no fixed timeline. It depends on exposure, consistency, and method. Some reach conversational fluency in months if they immerse themselves intensely. Others take longer, but steady daily practice always leads to progress.
That means anyone can achieve fluency with the right approach.
Yes, fluency is accessible to everyone who builds a system they enjoy and follow consistently.
I want to ask about note-taking. Is it helpful?
For some learners, yes. Writing down new vocabulary or grammar patterns can help organize knowledge. Others prefer digital flashcards. Others rely solely on input. Note-taking is optional, not mandatory.
What about pronunciation practice?
You can record yourself speaking and compare it with native audio, or read aloud daily, or shadow dialogue from a show. Repetition builds accuracy.
What about mistakes that are hard to correct?
Hard to correct mistakes usually require targeted practice. Identify the mistake, find examples of the correct usage, and practice producing sentences. With enough repetition, the correct pattern replaces the incorrect one.
Let us talk about real conversation with native speakers. Many learners feel anxious about it.
Anxiety is normal. The solution is to start with small, simple conversations. Introduce yourself. Talk about your day. Ask basic questions. As confidence grows, expand topics.
Online conversations make it easier.
Yes, you can choose partners, schedule convenient times, and practice from home.
What about listening to fast speakers?
Start with slower and clearer content. Gradually increase difficulty. Mix easy and difficult content. Over time, your brain adapts to fast speech.
How do learners avoid fossilizing errors?
By receiving feedback from native speakers or tutors. When someone points out an error repeatedly, you become aware of it and gradually correct it.
Should learners study formal grammar books?
Only if they enjoy them or if they need clarity. Grammar books are not required for fluency, but they can help some learners understand patterns.
Let us discuss motivation again. How does someone stay inspired over months or years?
By connecting the language to their identity. When English becomes part of your daily life, your music, your shows, your news, your hobbies, it becomes more than a school subject. It becomes part of who you are.
That is a deep way to think about it.
Yes. Language is not only knowledge, it is a lifestyle.
After listening to the conversation, you can test your understanding with the following 25 questions. Question 1. What did Vanessa say is the first major difference between successful and unsuccessful language learners? A. Successful learners have higher IQ. B. Successful learners enjoy the learning process. C. Successful learners study only grammar. D. Successful learners memorize textbooks. The correct answer for question 1 is B. Successful learners enjoy the learning process. Question 2. According to the conversation, what makes learners stay longer with a learning activity? A. Pressure from exams. B. Enjoying the material they use. C. Memorizing large vocabulary lists. D. Changing methods every day. The correct answer for question 2 is B. Enjoying the material they use. Question 3. What is spaced repetition mainly used for? A. Improving pronunciation. B. Memorizing new grammar rules. C. Reinforcing vocabulary over time. D. Learning whole paragraphs. The correct answer for question 3 is C. Reinforcing vocabulary over time. Question 4. What does Vanessa say about forgetting vocabulary? A. Forgetting means the method is wrong. B. Forgetting is normal in the learning process. C. Forgetting means you should stop learning. D. Forgetting only happens to older learners. The correct answer for question 4 is B. Forgetting is normal in the learning process. Question 5. How does Ben describe school dialogues he disliked? A. They were too advanced. B. They were too scientific. C. They were boring and unrelatable. D. They were too short. The correct answer for question 5 is C. They were boring and unrelatable. Question 6. Why do subtitles help according to Vanessa? A. They help you cheat. B. They help comprehension in early stages. C. They improve writing skills. D. They make content slower. The correct answer for question 6 is B. They help comprehension in early stages. Question 7. What is the main benefit of self-talk? A. Learning slang. B. Practicing speaking without pressure. C. Improving reading comprehension. D. Memorizing lists faster. The correct answer for question 7 is B. Practicing speaking without pressure. Question 8. What does Vanessa say about speaking with mistakes? A. You should avoid mistakes at all costs. B. Mistakes are valuable information. C. Only advanced learners can make mistakes. D. Mistakes show lack of intelligence. The correct answer for question 8 is B. Mistakes are valuable information. Question 9. How can learners build a strong language habit? A. Study only when they feel motivated. B. Wait for large blocks of free time. C. Integrate learning into daily routines. D. Study only on weekends. The correct answer for question 9 is C. Integrate learning into daily routines. Question 10. Why do some polyglots create colorful grammar charts? A. They are required in exams. B. They enjoy personalizing their learning. C. They avoid reading books. D. They want to impress others. The correct answer for question 10 is B. They enjoy personalizing their learning. Question 11. What type of vocabulary should learners prioritize? A. Words that appear in textbooks only. B. Words relevant to their personal lives. C. Complex academic words. D. Rare idioms first. The correct answer for question 11 is B. Words relevant to their personal lives. Question 12. What is the main purpose of small, consistent daily steps? A. To avoid learning new things. B. To build long-term fluency. C. To replace real practice. D. To avoid speaking. The correct answer for question 12 is B. To build long-term fluency. Question 13. What does Vanessa say about learning grammar? A. Grammar must be mastered first. B. Grammar should be memorized in isolation. C. Grammar is easier when learned in context. D. Grammar is unnecessary. The correct answer for question 13 is C. Grammar is easier when learned in context. Question 14. How should learners choose a book to read in English? A. Choose a book they already know. B. Choose the hardest book available. C. Choose a book with unusual vocabulary. D. Choose a book they dislike. The correct answer for question 14 is A. Choose a book they already know. Question 15. What kind of practice helps convert passive vocabulary into active vocabulary? A. Listening only. B. Reading only. C. Speaking practice. D. Memorizing rules. The correct answer for question 15 is C. Speaking practice. Question 16. What does Vanessa suggest doing when feeling overwhelmed? A. Stop learning for a long time. B. Switch to tiny, manageable tasks. C. Start learning 10 hours a day. D. Focus only on grammar. The correct answer for question 16 is B. Switch to tiny, manageable tasks. Question 17. What helps learners handle fast speech? A. Only listening to slow content. B. Avoiding fast speakers. C. Gradually exposing themselves to faster content. D. Only reading books. The correct answer for question 17 is C, gradually exposing themselves to faster content. Question 18. What does Vanessa say about age and language learning? A. Only children can learn well. B. Adults have no advantages. C. Age is not a barrier. D. Older learners cannot speak fluently. The correct answer for question 18 is C. Age is not a barrier. Question 19. What does tracking progress help with? A. Memorizing slang. B. Realizing the amount of work done. C. Avoiding learning tasks. D. Learning pronunciation. The correct answer for question 19 is B. Realizing the amount of work done. Question 20. What is one major cause of learners quitting? A. Too many teachers. B. Expecting fast results. C. Lack of textbooks. D. Learning too slowly. The correct answer for question 20 is B. Expecting fast results. Question 21. What technique helps with pronunciation and intonation? A. Silent reading. B. Shadowing. C. Writing essays. D. Watching only dubbed content. The correct answer for question 21 is B. Shadowing. Question 22. What should learners do during low motivation periods? A. Quit temporarily. B. Switch to easier, enjoyable tasks. C. Add more pressure. D. Avoid all content. The correct answer for question 22 is B. Switch to easier, enjoyable tasks. Question 23. What is immersion mainly about? A. Traveling abroad. B. Constant exposure to the language. C. Learning only grammar rules. D. Reading only textbooks. The correct answer for question 23 is B. Constant exposure to the language. Question 24. How can someone avoid comparing themselves to others? A. Focus on personal progress. B. Study more grammar. C. Ask others to slow down. D. Ignore all input. The correct answer for question 24 is A. Focus on personal progress. Question 25. What mindset helps someone stay consistent for years? A. Treating language learning as a lifestyle. B. Studying only when forced. C. Avoiding mistakes. D. Only learning vocabulary lists. The correct answer for question 25 is A. Treating language learning as a lifestyle.